Yeah, and I think that's one thing that we were fortunate to have at Anglico. And then when I moved on to MARSOC, we had really good JTAC instructors. We had, Gunny G, and then we also had John Dillard, MARSOC, who, by far was probably one of the most experienced JTACs in the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys teaching you and then going on the OP with you and just slamming you hard.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can induce quite a bit of stress on an OP, especially when, it's your check ride and
Yeah.
you're like, I don't get to go down range if I don't get the check in the box from old, Rhino. And so that induces some stress, but, and I've seen guys that he said, no, you don't get the check, man. Like, you're not deploying. That's actually how I got on my last MARSOC deployment. One of our guys, they pulled his qual and they were like,
Damn.
hey dude, I know you just got back, but hey, you want to go to Cali and do a workup with those guys? And I was like, yeah, I guess so.
That's crazy
So
because it
yeah, I
seemed
mean,
it's crazy that someone got pulled. I mean, it's obviously that's the right thing to do, right? But it's crazy that someone is over in the MARSOC Fires platoon and they're still having issues because those guys, you guys are getting the best training and the dudes are screened to even come over there. So it's not like you're taking some scrub that just got done with TCP school and doesn't even know how to do like multiple sections or anything like that, you know?
well, I think MARSOC Fires when I slid over to MARSOC Fires just as they were standing that platoon up. So
Mm-hmm.
we still had some of those same growing pains. We had guys that came over there that maybe they finagled orders,
Mm.
but they weren't maybe the best fires that we could have had. And at the time, we were sending guys out the door left. We were understaffed, and so we needed bodies. We were trying to make guys deploy that could at least get maintain the currencies and the standard. But sometimes we had guys that just weren't quite there, and that we needed to make a hard decision that was, hey man, we can't send you down range. So it
No,
did happen. It was very, I think I only saw one guy get pulled from a deployment, and then, with some of the stuff that I had happen to me, I actually had to go through the entire syllabus again to become a JTAC because I had my qualification pulled and I got decertified as a JTAC
oh man.
on one of my deployments. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
it
crazy.
happens, but
Well, at least at least you have the opportunity to come back and like, hey, it's not like, hey, you're not going on this deployment and we're kicking you out of the unit. It's like, hey, you're not going on this deployment, but we're going to help you bring your skill level up. You're still an
I mean,
asset.
they absolutely could have. I mean, they could have pulled my qual and then kicked me out of the unit. But unfortunately, they felt that I was trainable and that I when the mistake happened, and we can talk about that maybe the next podcast.
Okay.
It's also in my book. I write a whole chapter on the fratricide incidents that I caused while I was in Afghanistan in 2009, and it's a tragedy, but I learned from it, and then when I went and started working with the SEAL teams, that was one of our main teaching points that we would do with some of those SEALs is we'd go out to the range and I would set up a danger close strafe with whatever asset that we had, whether it was an F-18, F-16 or whatever, all dry cast.
Mm-hmm.
But I would simulate that same incident with the strafe run and with basically 30-degree off the nose from your position. So these guys are coming in danger close on you, and you're trying to assess the nose position on this aircraft while it's coming in to make sure that it's not pointed at your position, but it's pointed 50 meters away at the enemy. And most people, you can't tell.
Yeah, it's like an impossible task.
Yeah.
So now that you say that, I think I know the incident that you're speaking about, and Rhino actually, I sat through his fratricide class and all that, and we started doing the same thing at Anglico with having at the end of like if we go out to Gila Bend and at the end of the training scenario, hey, everybody's Winchester, confirm Winchester. All right, now we're gonna do a run like you're saying, same kind of scenario. So I'll be interested. That's a good preview for people for the next episode.
And it's in my book too. So if you buy the book, you'll be able to read it in depth about it.
Let's back up to even going to MARSOC for you then, because you said now you're going there early on. Did it seem kind of like when you got to Second Anglico, where they're like rebuilding or they're building up this? We're just bringing in bodies right now to kind of build up this platoon to actually make a platoon.
For Anglico or for MARSOC?
For MARSOC, because you said that when you got there, they were kind of building up the fires platoon at the time.
Yeah, no, we were. I mean, when I got there, I think it was July of 2008 or something. And I mean,
Hold on just a second. I lost you when you said you got there in July of 2008 and then it cut off.
Yeah, so I got to the fires platoon for MARSOC in July of 2008. Mm-hmm. And I think at the time we only had maybe 3 or 4 people there in the fires platoon. So it was kind of like Anglico all over again. When I first got there, we're building from scratch, and MARSOC, they still had guys, and they still had guys at the battalion that were doing the JTAC role, that were actually attached to the battalion. But I think at that time they were getting ready to basically stand up a fires platoon, and then pull everybody back and kind of centralize it so they can actually get every guy trained correctly before they, task and send them out to a team. So a little disorganized there for a little while, but they definitely got it figured out now.
Yeah. And when you moved over there, did you request to go there? Were you recruited to go over there? Like, how did you find out about that position and that opening?
Yeah, at the time, it was right when we got back from my third deployment. I had a couple buddies that had orders to go over there, and I don't remember how I got orders over there, but somehow I finagled them over there. I mean, they didn't. I think they had a billet for an 06 there for whatever reason, because I wasn't a JTAC at the time. Mm-hmm. I got my JTAC qual once I got over there. But yeah, I think it was a good deal handshake. It might have been Villette was over there at the time, or somebody that got me over there. But,
okay. Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of strange. I mean, it would be less strange if you were a JTAC or an 0861, on your way to become a JTAC. Bringing over an 0621 to fall into a fires position is probably not the normal route, right?
No, I mean, it wasn't, like that was my whole career though. Like people tell me you can't go do that, and I'm like, well, I think I can do that. I just got to figure out how to put that square peg in the round hole. Because like on my third MTT deployment there, I had a master guns that was on the MTT with us, and he was like a 30-year master guns, like just disgruntled, but he was an 06. Mm-hmm. And I was like, so he found out I was an 06, and he's like, this is what you have to do for your career. You got to do this, this, and this as a sergeant. And I'm like, yeah, dude. I was like, I'm not doing that. I was like, I'm going to get orders over to MARSOC. I'm going to become a JTAC, and I'm going to go work on the teams over there. And he's like, oh, you'll nuke your career. You'll never make staff sergeant. And I'm like, well, I never thought I'd make it to corporal. So I'm already way ahead,
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of that in the Corps. There's a lot of people that just say, hey, you can't do that. And,
mm-hmm.
Maybe they do that for a reason, because if you really want to do it, you're going to make it happen anyway.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't always work out for everybody. They're telling the cautionary tale because for a lot of people, that kind of attempt is not going to work out. But I've said multiple times on here, if you want to have a cool career, if you want to do like the fun stuff, you got to take charge of your own destiny. You got to make things happen. No one's just going to like say, hey man, we're sending you to this school because we just thought of you. No one's going to do that. Hey man, we're going to send you to this unit because, we just thought of you. That may happen, but it's more likely that you need to go up and ask somebody like, hey, I want to go to this school. I want to go to this unit. Hey, reach out to units and try to get like a by name request. That happened to me one time. Doing something like that is, I don't know, it can make a huge difference in someone's career and like the different things they get to do if they just like make the attempt. I had a guy tell me one time, closed mouths don't get fed. And I'm like, you're right, man. Unless you ask for something, I don't know that you need it. So it's one of those things you got to take charge of it. So that's really cool that you made it work out.
Yeah, squeaky wheel never gets the grease, right? Or always gets the grease.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and that's how you get a lot of the schools is, you got to put the effort in a lot of times to be qualified to go. But if you're not in there making it the schools, you won't go.
Yeah, ignore the haters for sure. Anyone that's just hating on you as they continue on their mundane career and you go out and get to do cool stuff, fuck them.
Yeah.
That just is what it is. Now, when you moved over there, it says you went to SOTAC so you didn't go to EWTG PAC or EWTG LANT for TACP school, which is the Tactical Air Control Party, which is where most Marine Corps JTACs are made at. You went to the Air Force's Special Operations. What is it? Special Operations Terminal Attack Controller School. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I don't know what TACP was like, so it was good. I mean, it's out in what is that? It's out in Yuma, so out in the desert. But no, it was good. It was hard. It was a hard school.
Yeah.
They didn't get as much air out there as probably TACP does. Like I wasn't a full called up JTAC when I left there. But I got to integrate. I mean, they had SF guys at the school. They had soft TAC Ps, CCT guys that were all going through the school. So you got to mix with those guys and kind of see, how they did different things. Because a lot of those guys were in their pipeline already and whatnot. But I wasn't allowed to go to TACP because I was in 06. So that was another thing. It's like, how do we get this guy called up if the Marine Corps said go to this school because he's not in 08?
Yeah.
So,
SOTAC was always one. I remember hearing about it when it was like I was trying to get a screening for TACP school. And it was talked about, you got, like you said, you got less live controls. And I think that's why initially, I don't know if it is now, but I know then when I was in still, it wasn't recognized by like the big Marine Corps. Like if you were a SOTAC qualified JTAC, you couldn't just come out to the fleet and start controlling. You'd have to get more training, but you could control for any special operations forces. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that was true the entire time that I was at MARSOC. I was, SOTAC, but the Marine Corps could care less.
That makes no sense.
But who cares? Like, at the time I'm with MARSOC, so I'm going to be controlling.
Yeah.
For the special ops guys, and I didn't think past MARSOC I had any chance of doing anything. I think MARSOC was like I thought my end game. Like that's going to be pretty much it for me unless I lat move to 08. Initially, when I got to MARSOC, I put in a package to become a shooter, but at the time it was, they basically slapped it back in my face and said, no, we need JTACs. Like we're not taking anybody that has a JTAC qual. So we had a couple other guys like my buddy Dennis Kanzler that ended up getting killed in Afghanistan. Me and him put a package in, and then my other buddy Salisbury, who is back at ANGLICO now. But yeah, so I mean, there was an attempt to like, I was like, I got to do something else because I can't ride this 06 train much longer as a JTAC without getting put back to like 8th crime,
Oh man, filling out record jackets.
And I'd be really lost. Yeah.
You're sitting in a comm cage trying to sort through all the SL3 gear. How many handsets we got? 50. Count them out. Yeah. Man, that sounds miserable, doesn't it?
No.
When you got over there, so when you got to the fires platoon, how long were you there before you went to SOTAC? Were you there for a little bit before you went to SOTAC?
Oh, man. If I remember correctly, what did I get there? Man, I got there, I think, July of 08, and then I think I got certified as a JTAC in October. So I wasn't there very long, but, yeah, I got to school pretty quick.
And did you roll right into a team following, your certification?
Yeah, I rolled right to a team. Actually, I rolled to... It was basically the second Fox company. So I think you interviewed Gavin. Was it Fred?
Yeah, Fred Galvin.
Galvin, yeah. He was the first Fox company that went over, and we were the second that that went over. So I got attached to 8212 as their JTAC, and they were pretty much halfway through their workup already. So I fell in on a team that was like, who the hell are you?
Yeah, you know? That sucks.
Like, yeah, it did suck because like I think initially when I fell in on the workup, I actually fell in on 8213, and then they moved me halfway through the workup to 8212 because one of their shooters became a JTAC. So they said, "Oh, we'll take him, and you can go to 8212 who doesn't have a JTAC." So I ended up going to that team, building rapport, and then getting bumped to another team within the company. So that was fun. But I mean, you know, after you baptism under fire with those guys a couple times and they see you do work, you know, they trust you. So
but, yeah, it's one of those show up, put your head down, and just do your job and be good at it kind of deals.
Yeah, I had to. Yeah, guys were all a lot of the initial guys at MARSOC were all prior old force dudes that, I mean, they'd been there and done that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah, so it's time for you to earn your spot there. Yeah. Do you feel like at this point were you ready to undertake the task that was being given to you? You know, because you'd done 3 deployments with ANGLICO. You weren't a JTAC on any of them, but you understand the fires piece. You know, after being at ANGLICO for a while, you're just going to get the fires piece. You know, after having done these 3 deployments, now you've done SOTAC, you've done Sierra, you've done Jump, you've done all these other schools and stuff, and now you're at the fires platoon attaching to a team. Did you feel like you were ready for that?
Yeah, I thought I was ready at the time, but you know, I was still young, you know. Mm-hmm. In Iraq, we got into a couple firefights. We got shot at, blown up, but I had never been in like sustained combat where you're like, oh, I don't think I'm going to make it. So honestly, when I look back, you know, I think the Lord prepared me for what was to come on my MARSOC deployments, because you know, it was kind of a progression up to it where I wasn't just like, as a Lance Corporal thrown into, you know, the Battle of Fallujah when they were going door to door in Fallujah. Like, I don't think I would have done that great in that situation, but, you know, for whatever reason, he prepared me for what was to come by that progression. So, you know, I felt I was ready, but again, you know, I wanted to be in combat. I wanted to go shoot dudes in the face and drop bombs on their heads. But I didn't realize that sometimes when you ask for that, you'll get that delivered to you.
Yeah.
So I got it a little bit worse than what I asked for.
Yeah. So. That's something I always tell people too. It's like, careful what you ask for, man. You might just get that. You know, it sounds cool.
Yeah.
And someone like you will know, like, you know, having been in sustained firefights and stuff like that, sounds cool when you haven't done it, or you know, you see it in a movie or whatever. And there's moments of it where it is cool. But there's a lot of moments where you're like, man, this fucking sucks. Like, man, I hope I don't fucking die right now. Like, you know.
Yeah, I had an instance like we were getting ready. I was getting ready to drop on some dudes in Afghanistan, and I was standing next to my captain. We were like in between 2 walls, and we're just standing there. I'm like, you know, the plane's getting ready to come in, and then we look at each other and we're like, dude, we shouldn't be standing here. We're like in an alleyway, and right as we looked at each other and said, we shouldn't be